securing critical security assistance to Israel each year to ensure that Israel remains capable of facing increased threats, passing legislation requiring the administration to evaluate all future military sales to Arab states in the context of a need to maintain Israel's qualitative military edge over potential adversaries, strongly urging the administration to take its decision to designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps as a terrorist group and weapons proliferator through an amendment supported by 76 senators in key legislation passed in the House of Representatives.
If a congressman or senator seems hesitant about aiding Israel, helping Israel reach its objectives, or actually opposes aid to Israel, for example, if a congressman or senator dares to do that, then normally what happens is that the Israeli groups here will find an opponent in the following election to rise against and to run against that wrongdoer, and then they will pour just millions into that person's campaign coffers to help them win. In the majority of cases, it's been effective. It's worked. There have been some exceptions. But so therefore, of course, this strikes fear in the hearts of any good-natured, decent congressman or senator who doesn't want to give up his or her career, and there's nothing in it for them to, of course, stand for Iran, except very few people like, say, for example, Ron Paul or Dennis Kucinich.
The House Appropriations Subcommittee on State, Foreign Operations and Related Programs on June 30th passed a foreign aid bill for fiscal year 2011, which includes $3 billion in security assistance for Israel. This aid reflects the third year of a 10-year U.S.-Israel security agreement signed back in 2007 to gradually increase U.S. security assistance to the Jewish state in order to meet increasing threats, including a potential nuclear-armed Iran.
Well, the thing is clear. The West, the Western countries, they have an allied country in the Middle East, and that is Israel. Now, Israel has a lot of lobby and centers of influence in United States and in Europe. Anyhow, they have to support Israel by any means. Now, this is the policy of United States and Western European countries. Now, they think that for the security of Israel, it is important that Israel would hold all kinds of armaments. Americans, they are giving them everything, conventional arms, defensive arms, aggressive arms, nuclear weapons that they have obtained from France with the cooperation of France and so on. Then they want to keep Israel as such. Now, if they keep Israel as such, then Iran has to be in a lower position. Otherwise, if Iran is not in a lower position, Iran would react to Israel's influence in the Middle East, and the game would not be played properly according to the wishes of the West. Now, then they have to put Iran at the lower level. That is why they don't want Iran to have any technology, not only nuclear, technologies regarding missiles and so on. And whenever there is something done in Iran which takes Iran into a better position, in the West they become angry and they blame Iran of doing this, of doing that.
Well, not everyone shares AIPAC's happiness. CEO of Total, for example, who joins the anti-unilateral sanctions chorus and says, well, what are you doing? These sanctions will hurt the Iranian people, not the government. The CEO of French energy giant Total on Friday criticized sanctions against Iran, saying an embargo on petrol products was an error that would harm ordinary people. Speaking at an economic forum in southern France, Christophe de Margerie confirmed Total had suspended its deliveries to Iran in line with the sanctions adopted by the UN, US, and European Union in response to Tehran's refusal to halt its uranium enrichment program. He said, quote, "I maintain this is a mistake. The embargo affects the population. Too many things are politicized these days," he told media. "We do not think an embargo on the delivery of petrol products is a good way to settle differences of a political nature." De Makiri said Total would resume deliveries at the first opportunity, saying it was a serious mistake to mix things that are civil and political.
Well, of course, I think the problem of gasoline, export of gasoline to Iran is not a very important one. Because the West, in the West, they think that if the gasoline is not exported to Iran, there would be a calamity in that country. First of all, the Iranians, they are getting ready for that. They have some measures. They have taken some measures to make for gasoline in Iran. They are developing new refineries and so on. Anyhow, I think that is not going to hurt Iran, even if though Iran has to restrain from the consumption of too much gasoline in Iran. That would be a good thing. That would not be a bad thing.
So just one day after Obama signs into law another round of U.S. unilateral sanctions against Iran, he sends his envoy William Burns to Brussels to simply get all the 5+1 together. Simply tell Iran that the door is still open for diplomacy. World powers negotiating on Iran's nuclear program have renewed their offer for talks despite imposing new sanctions against the Islamic Republic, the United States said on Friday. Senior U.S. diplomat William Burns traveled to Brussels for talks with Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the European Union on the next steps on Iran, the State Department said. State Department spokesman Mark Toner told reporters that, quote, "They restated the offer to meet with Iran for discussions on the nuclear issue and stressed the door remains open to Iran." That according to State Department spokesman Mark Toner. But P5+1's open door comes a few days after Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad set his own conditions for talks with the group. At a press conference in Tehran on Monday, Ahmadinejad said nuclear talks with the 5+1 group cannot begin until the major powers revise their stance toward Israel's stockpile of nuclear weapons, agree to include other countries in the nuclear talks, and agree to changes to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Because you did something immoral, therefore, we will delay the talks. The negotiations will happen in the middle of, toward the second half of the holy months of Ramadan. This is a kind of fining them, actually, a penalty for them, so they need to learn to behave themselves when they want to embark on talking with world nations. They need to learn to behave. Those who want to enter talks with us, they need to announce what are they going after in the talks? What's the purpose of the talks? Do they want to make friends with us, or they want to keep being inimical toward us? Those who want to be our friends will have our own way, and those who want to continue enmity toward us will have another way. For world people, they need to clarify certain issues. Okay, they want to have talks with us. Very well, fine. We want to know their opinions about several issues. First of all, what's their opinion about the atomic bomb at the hands of the Zionist regime? Anyone who wants to enter talk with us, they should announce, are they for this or against this? At the same time, they should also know that talks, there is no talks between P5+1 with Iran. There are also some other parties that need to be involved.
The United States is obviously in violation of international rules on nuclear weapons production, development, and the U.S. is also using them in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they use them in Yugoslavia. So it's pretty hypocritical to be punishing other countries, selectively enforcing international laws, and then writing our own legislation when we are the greatest violators of international laws and of our own laws on nuclear issues.